What's up, everybody? Welcome to this new LightShare episode. It's been a long time, and I'm here with Adrian and Andre. We're just gonna catch up on some things, tell you guys how we're doing, and also dive into some topics that we've had storing up for a while. So, I guess we'll start with this. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good, man. Definitely like the beginning of the year. It's like I didn't get that much of a time to rest. I think like it's just pushing all the way through. Um, the amount of work, the amount of things that I'm trying to accomplish is just like increasing and growing. So it's full steam ahead, I guess. Not much time to rest. How are you?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. All good,
for all of
man.
us
Like
too.
just keep going, I'm keeping up with everything, including the challenge that we're doing, Dom, which is in a way, I don't know if you can relate to this, but it no longer feels like a challenge when you're doing it for so long, it's like just becomes your day-to-day thing.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what about tomorrow? Like you don't even have to wonder. It's like I already know what's coming. So
Yeah. I like how in the challenge we're just giving each other emojis now. We're not even like, because we
I
already
know,
know what to
right?
do.
In the beginning,
just-
when I sent you that app to track the workouts and stuff, which is called Strava, remember?
Mhm.
I used to like go back and edit the names of each workout. Day 3, I did this and I felt this way. Now it's like just untitled, untitled, untitled. It's like they're just there, but you no longer feel that need to go back and edit everything. It's like tracked. It's all there. That's all that matters.
Mhm.
So anyway, this is like pushing us away from
No,
the main
it's good that
topic
you
today,
mentioned
I
that,
guess.
because that's exactly the process of building a habit, right? Like in the
Yeah.
beginning, you need to track things way more closely because you're actually developing the habit. Now that you already have it, it's like cool. It's
No,
just
but
another
I
day at
think
work.
that's a good point. But the way I wanted to express that message was that that's the distinction between the initial excitement when you're comfortable and like beginning something new. It's like, yeah, it's so cool, let's do this. And then when that excitement vanishes because it's, you will reach a point where it's going to turn a little more difficult and you will no longer be that excited or motivated to do it. Then what do you do then? Do you stop because
Can't find
I
any
no longer feel
motivation.
like this? It's like
Yeah.
you just keep going and you adapt. And that was a nice realization, to come across.
Mhm.
Like, look at me. I no longer care about those little things that I was so immersed in the beginning. Now I just do the job. I get it done.
Yeah. But other than that, I think we've all changed quite a lot. So physically and mentally, I've I feel different compared to like a month ago or since the
Well,
last episodes.
walk us through
Because
that a little bit,
it's
bro.
been, I mean, with all the daily habits we're doing and everything, my weight has gone down significantly. So I'm building a lot more strength now. My face is leaning out compared
Dude,
to
your face
if,
does look different.
if you guys look at the past episodes, you can see how different and bloated I looked, kind of. But that's kind of in order now. Mentality has shifted. I'm getting everything in order, so I'm taking on more challenges as well, and hopefully that kind of motivates you guys out there to, put on the extra load. Even if it's uncomfortable. I mean, that's how you grow. That's how you build discipline and evolve. So don't shy away from the struggle. I'd say just take it head on, you know, and whatever comes your way, like take every opportunity. Like
It's
don't
quite
just pass one
counter.
off because
It's quite counterintuitive, right? Like, because you tend to run away from discomfort and pain or any sign of struggle. But ironically enough, that's precisely what's holding the thing you want the most, which is to reach that next level, to meet your next higher, better self, for to say it in a certain way, right?
Yeah, I guess it's because people have a misconception of what like struggle is, right? Like the struggle is not the way that I see it, right? The real struggle is, I don't know, like not having food on your table, or being ill, having a disease. Like it's hard to, like, that doesn't have a cure, or that sort of thing. To me is a struggle. Like we get to challenge ourselves. Like it is an opportunity. It's you are blessed to have the opportunity that your struggle, what you call struggle, is like doing art. I'm not saying that it's not challenging or it's not difficult or whatever, but I don't know. I guess it's being more aware of how good we have it. Like I know we repeat that on almost every episode,
No, but we said this in the gratitude episode, and I remember it now because I've been rewatching it a little bit this morning, and it's essentially the same message, like being aware of how well you have it, while at the same time honoring the possibility that you have because of everything you've been given, let's say, this opportunity, right, to explore and march on this expedition and adventure and find out new things and explore. So I think that's the thing you should not run away from, because it's like it becomes almost like a responsibility for yourself, right? Like you can do it, you must do it. You can get better, you must get better, right? Or you can stay
and also like
as you are, and if that makes you happy, so be it. Like it's honestly about finding what works for you, right? So that's it.
But dude, how can you look at the world and like there's so much to learn and so many
Exactly,
things to,
but
like,
hey, some people will say, no, I don't want to know anything else. I already know everything. I'm already the best. I'm already big enough. I'm already like, I'm fine. Okay.
That's where this book comes in.
There you go. Yeah, I just finished that one.
Ego is the
recently.
enemy. It's a really good book.
Really cool one.
Definitely recommend it. Yeah, if you guys want to head into a topic, we could talk about how to find inspiration for artwork.
Struggle.
And
that's inspiration.
Yeah.
For real.
Right off the bat.
No, I'm not trying to make a joke or anything. It's literally just that. Isn't it when you're actually under a little bit of stress that you're showered with these thoughts of like inspiring quotes and things that you didn't even know you could come up with, and you're suddenly sparking like all these ideas in mind that could either manifest in, I don't know, like paintings or animation ideas, or you can even visualize like cinematics and stuff that you can later develop further and elaborate a little more through your initial sketches and stuff. And then you look up some references, or you come up with the whole thing entirely. I don't know. But it's in those low moments that I think you find the most of that.
Yeah, I think I told you about that a while ago when I was showing you that my art versus artist thing. I was talking about like each piece kind of relates to my personal struggle of like the
like
character
your journey
trying to
yeah.
fight his demons, or like he's fighting like these mythical creatures, and like it's parallel to me going through this struggle of taking on these daily challenges of work, exercise, eating healthy food, drinking water, making sure everything's in order. So it reflects like the hero's journey in a way of conquering yourself, and your characters are like conquering enemies in their world. It's like, yeah. I think that's like with all of us, we have that kind of story in our own IPs.
Not only in our IPs, but it's in every single life out there. It's like a pattern,
Mm-hmm.
That hero's journey thing is like a pattern. It's a recognizable, traceable, measurable pattern that you can spot on pretty much anything and everything at all different scales, be it in a day or in a year or in your whole life. But you seem to follow those patterns, that full circle of like starting at a place that you feel like there's something else, there's so much more. I want to go explore that world. Then you go into that unknown world somehow, You explore that world full of monsters and creatures, you defeat the dragons and stuff, and then you come back and share what you've learned with your people, or just add it to your baggage of knowledge for later. And then you repeat somehow in a different way later on. Different chapter.
Yeah. But I think we have this kind of thing in the industry where people are looking at other people's concept art for inspiration and looking at what else is trending out there. And while that's all good, I think, yeah, like what we said, digging deep into your struggle and finding what is causing that roadblock in your life, and like how are you trying to push through that and transmute it into your art somehow.
I guess like that sort of I was thinking while you guys were talking, and there's two main lines of thought that I have on it. It's, well, first of all, if we're doing more narrative pieces, I think that looking on your own struggle is a great piece of advice, right? Because then you do have a narrative ready to go that you can, and then you, based on the narrative, right? So as an example, what Dom was saying, like, oh, I have struggles in these and that aspects of my life. But when he went to make his piece, he abstracted those struggles into mythical creatures, right? So it's not that you're not painting a guy at his desk at work and that's his struggle, right? Because it's not that straightforward. It's more like abstractions, and then you can create narratives based on that. But also, like, on the line of work that I'm more used to, if you want to like be inspired on your professional work as well, in your like day-to-day concept art job, I think what I tend to do is like try to use the, let's say, the briefs or the prompts or whatever I have, because that's set for me, right? I don't need to come up with the written idea. I need to come up with the visual idea, right? And I find inspiration for those when I learn more about different subject matters. So what I really like to do is, whenever I'm gathering reference or doing any of those like key parts of the day job, I like to explore a little bit out of the like the regular reference gathering. So let's say that you're doing, I don't know, a little mug, right? And you want to do like a little mug for your character. That's the prop that you have to design. I will not just search for like mug references, right? I'll not search for different shapes of mugs. I'll not search like only on that realm. I will go, first of all, a little bit deeper into the specifics aspects of that. So like, how are they made? What kind of materials they use, and that sort of thing. But I'll also look for cultural aspects of other places in the world and try to find inspiration there and mix and match different things, right? So let's say that there's, look, I'm making this up, right? It's not something that is real, but let's say that this small island where people make their like little cups or bowls that they eat off of from a different material, like it's the bark of a tree that grow like only on that part of the world, and that tree has a like different shape, right? First of all, learning about those things is super inspiring because you learn more about the world that we live in, and you get in touch with like those different cultures. But also it gives you more of that visual library, right? The creative, what is it? I think it's Jake Parker who says like creative bank account, where if
Sounds
you are
good.
like learning, yeah, because like the whole idea, and I might be getting this wrong, but it's like you absorb some and then you output some, but that account needs to be balanced in a way that like that how much you absorb needs to pay for what you're outputting and a little bit more. Otherwise, you're just going on negative, right? And that's when you, in theory, starts to like produce the same work over and over again. When you're like exhausted of ideas, because you're not inputting anything, and it's not inputting just like, oh, I'm gonna watch Netflix for a whole afternoon, because that's you absorbing what the industry is putting out, right? That's you looking at concept art for inspiration. That's you like going to ArtStation for inspiration. Like
It's already
I see
processed.
ArtStation.
You're
Yeah,
processing
I see
something that's already
ArtStation
been
more.
processed before. So you're just,
It's
think
kind
of it
like,
in terms of like a JPEG. You export from Photoshop, right? You finish the painting, you export it, and then you import that same JPEG, which is already a lossless. No, it's actually it has loss of quality, right? In the format.
yeah,
You bring that JPEG again, you edit that. Think about the levels kind of thing you do in Photoshop, right? When you touch that up, watch the curve after. Try to apply again the same levels kind of thing. You'll see now the curve is like split in different, right? Different lines and stuff. Because it's lost a little bit of that initial body of, the quality that it had. So same story happens here, in my opinion. Like a lot of people tend to go to, Dom painted this amazing landscape. So I'm inspired now. I'm going to paint something similar because he inspired me. But what if instead of looking at Dom's painting, I actually addressed the roots of what inspired Dom to come up with that painting, And even if you look at Dom's painting first, you can then look up, like, I don't know, I'm imagining now one that we did in a labs episode. It's like green mountains. There's even like some...
like a gate, the gate one?
No, but similar is like a lady picking up like rice or something in the fields.
Oh, yeah.
Near the camera. Anyway, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. I want that. But go look up those type of cultures, those type of mountains, those type of settings, and then you will come up with something maybe similar to Dom or maybe entirely different because it's processed through your own filter, So
yeah.
I didn't mean to bring this into
people's.
No, I was thinking like, think of it in terms of like artificial intelligence, right? Like this has been processed by this amazing system that's called Dom Lay. Then stop using that. Use your own, right?
Yeah.
Think of it as your own language, let's say, your own taste, your own style. Now, again, this circles back to like, oh, but isn't it like necessary to copy in the beginning and learn from others? Yeah, it is, but to a certain extent, and in a way, you can't even call that your work because it's literally a copy from someone else's. That's where studies come in and all that stuff, right? So, anyway,
that's why there's like this constant thing, like in anime and in manga. How beginners try to copy the manga artist instead of drawing anatomy right from scratch in order to like stylize it later on. Like, oh, I'm just gonna copy my favorite anime show and like copy the proportions and everything, and then it looks wonky and stuff because the fundamentals weren't there, like the foundation.
Imagine you're an alien, right? You've never seen a human being before, and you can't see the body. You can only see the shadow, and you're forming your mental image of what a human is based on the shadow only. There's so much more you're gonna miss if you're only copying other artists, the manga kind of stuff, instead of looking at an actual human being and their anatomy and then stylizing that and doing what they do. So, I just, but that's boring. It's all the boxes, the perspective. Yeah. Andre's fucking boring video, 40 something minutes long, right? I don't want to watch that, but that's necessnecessary, dude. Like that contains the seed of the knowledge that you're going to use in all these tools to put together this, this team of ideas in your mind per se. So, yeah,
and
try to skip it.
I would argue that
won't work.
If the video is boring, you are not aligned with your goals. Like I would argue that. I think that if you're actually watching something that makes you fall asleep, it's because you can't recognize the value that it will have on contributing towards your bigger goal. And you either need to reevaluate your goal and how you look at things, or that particular piece of content that you're watching, right? So let's put, I'll use an example because that worked for me, right? There are certain videos, even like art-based ones, that people are teaching, I don't know how to do this particular architecture style or whatever. That doesn't, like, not always through my art journey, that kind of video was interesting for me. And the reason was because, like, at that moment in my life, that was not something that I was doing artistically, right? I was like, oh, I will learn about this thing, but I don't have where to implement it. I'm not currently working on something that like will use it, either personal project or professional project. So distinguishing between what you need to consume at that moment and what is useful for, I don't know, later on in your life, I think that might be a useful tool as well, because otherwise people might get confused and just say like, oh, I'll learn everything about every subject matter. And I feel like despite the fact that that is a good approach in general, like to have through your entire lifetime, I also feel like on a day-to-day basis, having smaller achievable goals will be more useful, right? So again, as an example, I don't know, I think 2 days ago, I watched a video of a guy disassembling this firearm. And I've been, lately, I've been very much on a firearm like binge, right? I've been watching a lot of content regarding that. And that is because I'm researching that subject matter and implementing it like on my personal work at the same time. And I'm learning a lot about that, right? I'm learning about how they work, like the internals work, how doing kind of like a deep dive into that subject matter. Where, I don't know, 2 years ago, 6 months ago, if I watched one of those videos, I would put them down and go to sleep while listening to it, So you need to understand where you are in your art journey so you can select the kind of intake that you're having, right? The whole example that you used on the guy that saw Dom's painting and wanted to do something similar, right? Maybe for him, like if it researches about the culture and goes, I don't know, 30% deep on that culture, maybe that's enough for him at that moment, right? And maybe 6 months from now, he'll do another painting on a similar vibe in a similar environment, and then he'll go 50% deep, and then 80% deep, and like I don't think there is.
Each time you revisit it, it's like there's a deeper layer of exploration going on, and like that slight improvement keeps adding up every time you revisit
it's kind of
that
like
piece
on
or that idea.
On, I don't know, Oblivion or Skyrim or any other RPG, right? You get a level, you don't get 20 skill points, you get one.
Yeah.
So you don't go like a full-on heads-on into one subject. You don't get like an archery mastery like on the first level. You get like 1 point in archery. Mm-hmm. So if we approach it that way, I think, first of all, it's less scary as well, because you understand that you don't need to know everything about the subject matter all in one go. You need to just know a little bit more than you knew yesterday. And then tomorrow, a little bit more. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, your video is not boring. That was just a satirical joke. And even if you even if you do find it boring, that's just saying that you just simply have no interest in that subject matter or whatever that may be, right? Like we may find, I don't know, math videos boring. We may find how to make TikTok videos boring because we're not interested in that. We may find I don't know, whatever you're not interested in, right? It's boring because it's like I'm wasting my time. So that's how it feels like. And it somehow ties back with this general attitude that we seem to embody a lot, which is that you don't do what you feel like doing. You feel what you must do, right? So even if you know you have to eat the veggies because they're healthy and because you're going to get better, instead of the sugars and the pastries and the donuts and all that stuff, you know you have to go through that in order to enjoy the next step, which is better health, better condition, a more ready to do anything type of attitude, instead of the sluggish, unhealthy type of being like, So that's what I'm saying, like sometimes I used to think that way in school too, like, hey, I know we hate history, I know we hate math, I know we hate these other things, and all we want to do is like physical exercise or, physical education class or like just drawing class, but those other things are kind of the veggies of this menu per se,
Okay,
like you have to go through that to
I do
pass
have a
the
question.
year and get to the next year and then finish the damn degree, right? And then you can do whatever you want. But that was just like a quick analogy. I'm not even sure if how accurate that is.
But did you actually found those classes boring as well? Like the other classes? Like that's,
I think
diving outside of the topic a little bit. But
I'll elaborate right now, just a little bit, because I did, but there are exceptions, and that's where the teacher matters so much. Because how many teachers do you remember from school, high school, university, whatever it may be. I bet you can count them with one single hand, right? So there are very few of those teachers that are actually passionate and like they're putting everything into their teaching, and they have this distinctive way of like making you understand those complex subjects and everything they try to teach. So that's why you remember those teachers. Because for instance, I had this history teacher that was, dude, I fucking hated history until this guy happened, right? He was like, it was almost like a show, you know?
Yeah.
The way he had to like point at things and make you understand with quick analogies and like all that stuff. Same story with philosophy as well. Everybody thought that was fucking boring. That was like absolutely awful. And I thought, you know what? I like this. I like it. I really like it. And I like the tone of this guy, and I like the way he teaches. So the teacher does matter a lot too, which is what brings me back to that's boring. You know, it's not so much necessarily a subjective perspective of you. It's probably also has to do with the other end sometimes. So no matter how exciting something might be, you know, you can manage to make it sound boring as fuck. Because teaching is like another art. That's what they say. Teaching is also something else. It's not simply, oh, I'm so good at doing this specific thing, I can just teach it.
Manage, you know, students' emotions as well.
You have to learn. Yeah, you have to learn a lot of things. Self-awareness. You have to understand body language. You have to read people. You have to, you have to think of the simplest way. In a way, doesn't that tie up with our job, which is to simplify things? And you know, simple design is a good design, and that's hard as fuck, right? It's hard to simplify things, synthesize everything. Isn't that what we do? We synthesize reality. We carefully extract something that deliberately, it's like we
more
clip,
complex.
We clip certain parts of a longer video, right? We only choose the highlights and we mash them up together and we come up with these pieces. That's just a tiny little portion. We designate these windows for our audience to look at this world that we're creating. Because you can't show them everything. It's like your eyes versus a camera. The camera sees only this. Your eyes see a little more. So with the camera, you have framing, right? Which is something you don't really do with your eyes. But with the camera, is like more physical. So same story. So sorry for all these analogies, but they just keep popping in my mind. Good.
I do think that it's the difference between the camera and the eyes. Like we are more intentional when using a camera. But if you apply the same approach to like the way that you look at the world, of course that, I'll not like lower myself down and put myself looking up to angle for a perfect shot, right? But if you try to look at the world and imagine your eyes as the camera, right? Like where am I pointing this at? Like, is this really something that is worthwhile photographing? Is this something that is worthwhile for me to be spending my time with? I think that will also help you kind of like filter out the noise that's another thing, right? Like we are talking about inspiration, but part of being inspired and selecting the content that will inspire you is very much the selection, right? It's very much the filter that you put things through, and just absorbing everything is not that useful as well. Which falls back again to the whole ArtStation stuff, right? Like just going to ArtStation, you have no idea who those people are. You have no idea the motivations that led them to create those pieces. You have no idea like what's the story behind that. You can just infer. I feel
you sometimes get to a point of saturation, right? Like your body when you're just throwing water, you know, all the time, and it can only absorb so much of its benefits. You get to a point where no matter how much more water you pour in, your body just flushes it out because it's just not necessary anymore. So same story happens with this oversaturation of information perhaps on you, like inspiration, this new course I've just watched, you know, this new tutorial, like it's the 10th one today, but how much do you remember of those 10th? Probably the first ones, yes, but the other ones, where did they land? You have no more place to store all this information. It's too saturated. So that's where I think what you mean is that you have to process all this information, absorb it, internalize it, filter it, and accept what you think makes sense for you and just let out what doesn't make so much sense to you. And perhaps, who knows, you'll revisit it again. Because I don't think we have like a permanent delete button for anything that we hear. Our memories are somehow lingering in the background until one day something pops and the spark illuminates another way to view the same things we seem to have forgotten. But then you suddenly remember, and it's like, now it makes sense. Yeah, now I can use this. So it's amazing how all of this happens. It's like thinking of it as a game, like you said earlier. You keep adding things to your inventory until one day you get to use it. You know, you just never know exactly.
When you reach level
moment.
60, you know what that level 1 scroll is used
level
for. Right?
100.
Like, it's being sitting in my inventory.
Mafia boss. Yeah. For now, let's stay as like level 1 crooks. You know, keep learning, keep improving, and then
totally
at some point you get there. But remember that, right? Because it's important to keep climbing that mountain. Because when you feel like you've arrived, you've already reached the summit, and there's nothing more. There's nothing else for me to learn. Then the next thing for you is to go down, right? That means you're going down now. There's nothing else to do. Mm-hmm. So try to stay, stay like this upwards, going upwards. Just keep climbing.
What do you guys think about the whole thing of artists not working on themselves, but working more on their art?
I'm not sure if I got that. Like, do you mean like kind of forgetting about who you are as a individual in general?
No, like
just
not taking care of yourself, but putting everything into your art.
Mm-hmm. So,
but in a way that's
it's
not necessarily the obsessive kind of thing, right? The obsessive artist that gives everything for the craft. It's more like I try to get better at art, but I don't try to get better at my natural self, let's say. Your daily habits, the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way you think, the way you talk, the way you behave, react, all of these things.
Confidence, social skills, how you act in public, all that's necessary, I think.
And also, other type of, let's say, addictions that are kind of stealing your attention from the craft that you're trying to get better at, such as, entertainment, excessive video games, excessive drugs, excessive junk food, excesses of everything that hinders your potential.
Because you can be a great artist and still suffer from like all these different vices, addictions, poor habits, because I've seen like some amazing artists who just their lives are recluse,
I mean, if you are a more introverted person and like maybe the social aspect is something that you're not that keen on, which is very common in our industry, right? I think an important thing to notice is that even though you might be introverted, at the end of the day, you are creating art for people. So the more that you know about how human beings feel things, how human beings interact, how they communicate, how they live in society, the more you'll be able to put that into your artwork. So for me, I do understand the people that are, like what Adrian said, obsessive about their artwork. But in my eyes, it's still very much, if you want to be the best artist possible, you will try to improve other aspects of your life. So let's say that you want to be the best artist possible, right? The cost benefit between you sacrificing 1 hour of your day that it would be spending on artwork and doing physical activities instead, doing exercising and doing that other stuff. That does seem to me like a very positive cost benefit, because you are sacrificing 1 hour of pure artwork to make the other, I don't know, let's assume that you only do art, right? The other 15 hours a day that you do artwork, they will be much more productive. And because of that 1 hour that you sacrifice every single day as well, you'll be able to do this for a longer period of time in your life. So to me, that whole one-dimensional kind of guy that just does this and like he's completely obsessed with that, I think he's sacrificing his own potential by being one-dimensional. And of course, there are like, it's very weird, right? Because if you talk about obsessive people, they're usually ahead of other people. And the reason why is because they dedicate so much more time. But it's not like that time that they dedicate, that will not disappear because that's who they are. So if you want to really achieve like the biggest potential that you have, you already are putting more time than other people, right? So time is not what is lacking for you now to improve even more. It's not just more time; it's the quality of that time. Is the knowledge that you have on other things as well. I remember I saw this video from Cole when he was like still alive, and he was talking about how he works out, right? How he does his practice on basketball, how he used to do. And he was like, oh, if you wake up at 11 a.m. and like you do one practice for about 3 hours, then you go back home, you rest for a couple of hours, then you go back out and you do another practice of 3 hours. Like that'll be, I don't know, 7 o'clock, and you're clocked out for the day, and you just are putting, I don't know, 6 hours a day. That's one thing. But then if you wake up early and then you wake up at 5, and then at 6 you're there, 6 to 9 you do one practice. Whenever the other guys wake up, you're already like ahead of them. You're 3 hours ahead of them, right? That's interesting, and I think that's one way to approach it. But what I want people to notice as well is that he puts rest in between those other times. Like
And
he
there's
does
some
do
level of
other
balance. He like family time and all that stuff, right? There's a level of balance there as well. But I was laughing earlier because I have conflicting thoughts about almost everything. I see the two sides or many more sides on almost anything, any concept. And in this case, I saw that as well when you said the obsessive artists and stuff that I mentioned. I think I find it beautiful and respectable, to be honest, that someone's believing in something to the point where they're willing to just sacrifice everything for that idea or that cause or that goal. But I also find it very beautiful when you manage to stay in the course a little longer, just by optimizing a little bit more everything else. So instead of putting everything into this basket, you're kind of like diversifying a little bit, taking care of your health, taking care of your family, just minding your social, like your friends and stuff, if they need anything, how can you help and all that stuff, instead of only focusing on something for you, or even if you think it's for someone else. So yeah, it's interesting how this whole thing you mentioned is present in anything else, not only in art, I see a lot of people who are like, yeah, but I work all day long and I don't have time to train or to work out or to take care of my diet, or, they feel like they're forced to adapt certain bad habits just to survive. And I think that's not right. That's not how it is. I think
like
you always
16
have a
hours in
choice
day.
if you truly wanted to be like that. But I think you're not the one speaking there. It's your lazy side. It's your ego. It's this thing that likes you as you are. Like, stay here. Misery loves company, right? So there's that other side of you that's calling you, please don't wake up early. Let's stay a little longer, I know you have responsibilities, but fuck that. Like, let's have fun. There's always that side of you calling you. So if you buy into that voice, then you fucked up.
But okay, so two things. The obsessive guy is not necessarily the guy that you just mentioned, right? The guy that you just mentioned is more like the lazy guy and all of that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about the ego. I also feel like the ego is what happens with the obsessive person, because you focus on like, oh, I'm an artist. If I spend like 2 hours less doing art a day, I'm not really an artist, or I'm not like dedicating myself to this. Mm-hmm. Right? It's very much you comparing yourself. And to be fair, I don't really have a lot of respect for that kind of people. And the reason why is because I feel like they're too narrow-minded. I mean, when I say that I don't really respect, it's like, oh yeah, you can do whatever it is that
Like
you
you
want with
wouldn't
your
do it.
life. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. And also it's hard for me to understand why someone would do that, because it's really like, even if you want to optimize something, right? If you want to be the most like optimize everything in your life, anywhere that you look for, no one in any field will tell you that doing that 100% of your wake time is the most optimal way of doing it. Never. It's not about the amount of time. It's about the amount of focus time, right? It's about
sometimes I feel like we're missing a part of that equation, because I don't think anyone finds that attractive unless they tell you that it's a sprint. It's not like they do that all their life, right?
I know
They
people that do
probably
that
spend doing that for like a few years until they master that craft, let's say, and then they expand and they do the thing you mentioned earlier about like increasing your level of proficiency on whatever the thing is. Yeah, every now and
getting
then.
the hard stuff out of the way and then focusing on.
But I understand what Andres says, that some people probably do that. No. Focus, committed to this only thing all my life, right? I understand that. That's more rare, but like you said, I respect that they do that. I mean, we probably wouldn't do that because we have other things in mind, but each to their own. So who are we to judge what's right or wrong, right? Everybody does what's
that's right.
best for themselves.
Into one thing, but neglecting my health in the process.
That's your hierarchy system, right? Like, what do you value the most? So if you value an object before you value yourself, then there you have it.
I think when people are kind of young and naive, they shoot for the thing that is going to, benefit them long term in the future, right? So like their dreams are first and foremost. And as a kid, you're kind of like optimistic and you want to do this because you're young, you have time to explore everything you want. So of course you're going to go all in, but then all the other stuff just kind of takes a back seat, like your health, your dating, sometimes social skills, all that stuff is just whatever. And you might like game here and there. You might try to balance that out with your work
here and there and there and there and everywhere. Always gaming.
But that's all you do. You game and you work on like art and stuff. I feel like that's most artists who are starting out. They're like, I need to balance, my entertainment with my work.
but that's a vicious cycle, because you keep going back and forth between those two, right? Like, I'm so tired of painting. Let me go relax. So you play games. You get more stress. You get it's even worse. Then, fuck this game. Let me go back to work so I can, feel a little better. So then you feel tired of. It's the same thing. It's a cycle.
You wake up and then
So what I wanted to say is that most people seem to miss the point of enjoying those things you work so hard for. With what? With a sick body? Like, that's where health occupies the highest positions in our hierarchies, I'd like to think, because I know you guys well enough to know that. And that's unfortunately not what most people have in their minds. They miss that perspective quite a lot, very often. It's so easy to miss that perspective also, because in a world full of noise and distractions all the time, it's almost like they don't even give you enough time, enough space, let's say, to think, to listen to your own thoughts. You no longer even know who you are. You're just chasing after the next movie, the next game, the next phone, the next whatever comes out first. Like, you gotta have it. It's like a competition.
It's because if you're having time to think, you are neither consuming or buying anything, so you're not like doing whatever it is that society needs you to do. Like if you have time and enough time to stop and think about yourself, no, you're not the proper consumer. You're not the proper social media user. You're not interacting there. What the hell are you doing? Thinking of yourself. If you want to think of yourself, post something. That's what you should do.
why are you keeping your attention to yourself? Like, give it to us, right? Like, it's an attention-seeking economy in a way. So all these social media platforms and everything fights for your attention if you pay attention, right? Like, they all want your time, to look at me, not at them, look at me, right? So that's marketing, that's
thing?
advertising, everything's tailored to fulfill that job. Sorry, go ahead.
And we work to make things pretty so that they can attract more attention. That's our job, which is weird, right?
Do you think I haven't thought about that for the last few years, bro? Like, I'm like, brother, I'm waking up to this pretty crazy realization, and I just happen to be the one feeding that machine? Like, what the right? Because we're the ones working on those things. Movies, games, we have to think about how to make it more interesting, different, unique. But deep down, it's also like, how can we make this more addictive, more to keep you in, more to keep you engaged? So that's where I made that. Sorry, go ahead, Dom.
I was just saying that authenticity is like a rare thing. How people are chasing the trends and trying to make it like that, right? Like what you said, making it flashy, making it addicting. But if you kind of just pull yourself away from that and do stuff that might not be as trendy, then it's
that's why I brought it up to hear you say that.
So there's a lot of this 1-2 second mentality out there. These kids, you see one thing and you scroll on to the next. It's not spiking my dopamine enough. I gotta move on to the next thing.
It almost feels like this machine has been getting so fat, amassing so much volume that it's so hard to redirect. And the way the industry is growing in terms of like the needs of the audience, right? Which is this fast-paced action type of movies or TikTok style type of consumption on these platforms, like shorter videos, like the attention span is like under a second, I think. You're just scrolling, and the first half second of that video is going to determine whether you stay to watch the next 5 seconds of it or not. And you boom, the next one, not this one. And yeah, dude, it's, of course I thought about that, but it's where I made that distinction of, wait a minute, there's another side of this story, because that is a tool that can be used. A knife can kill or can build, right? Or can liberate. It can do a lot of things. Depends on how you use it. It's a knife. It's just a blade.
So, no, I know. I was just thinking, like, how can I use a knife to build something? Like, I was thinking of that.
Oh, bro, like you can cut things, ropes. I don't know, tie up stuff. You can.
I know. I understand. I was just like thinking, because when you guys say things, my head is like imagining those things, and I was like, okay, I cannot. I was with a brick on my head and a knife on the other one. I was like, what the fuck?
Not like this, Andre.
I'm sorry for the diversion.
A brick of butter.
But the point is that when you work on these creations that are adding value, not taking it, right? Because that's, remember the bank you mentioned earlier, like the Jake Parker thing. Like, you have to be balanced. So if you're constantly consuming things like that take value away from you, like only take your attention away, your time, even your energy, because let's face it, like when you come across a post that triggers some emotional response in you, your body starts to feel different. You either feel very happy, you feel very empathetic, you feel very angry, or anything that you can think of in the opposite side of that spectrum. Then what you can do is to, choose to consume things that actually help you somehow, right? Like inspire you. Reading a book, for instance, why is a book any different from like any of these things we're mentioning? Because it's also like a creation, it's also art, it's also writing, it implies a lot of effort, and it sells something, an idea, a story. But there's books and books, right? It's like some of them are meant to be bought every month. Like, oh, next volume is out. Come on, come buy it. Some other ones are unique, like special edition and never again. And that's what gets to stay like that. And my point is that these stories are that side that I was mentioning, that it's not that bad, right? It's not as bad as what we mentioned so far. I don't know how to put a name on that. Like the whole thing we're a part of, in a way. Like you're feeding this machine. You're basically building, you're creating cigarettes, right? And you're giving them to people. Like, yeah, this is my job, but you shouldn't smoke.
Yeah.
You know? But
I'm not.
you make it. Yeah, but I don't smoke
we are designing
it,
the
you know?
boxes. We're not necessarily making the cigarettes themselves.
Yeah,
That's why
in a way, yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm creating eco-friendly cigarettes by making books instead of games.
I freaking knew that
I
that
think
analogy
it's
would just distort so much. So
no. So let's imagine that we are making cigarettes, right? Or at least we are the graphic designers of the cigarette company, right? I would say that some people in that company are working to make them more addictive. Some people are also working to make the filters better, right? So there is this duality of people that are inside of the industry that do want to make something like better. So as an example, right? I don't assume that anyone that works or everyone that works in the industry, like in our area, in our field, like the art departments and stuff like that, are necessarily thinking that, oh, I'll make this pretty in order to make it more addictive.
of course not.
No.
Yeah.
They're working to make it like, because it's their goal in life to make pretty pictures, right? It's their goal in life to design cool things. So the fact that it's being used towards a goal that we don't necessarily appreciate doesn't necessarily mean that the motivation is that, right? But also, since we are inside of the industry, right, that puts us in a position where we can raise up those concerns. I also think that getting rid of all of your responsibility is not necessarily good, right? If you are, I don't know, having lunch on the cafeteria of your studio and you came in touch with the game designer that is pushing for microtransactions, maybe you should have a talk with him and try to understand his motivations and then tell you what you think of it, right? And having a productive discussion. And I understand that, like, this is very idealistic. Like, no one will get in touch with the people that are in actually, like, the decision-making position on those companies or get to talk with these things. But let's say that today you talk with a junior developer, right? And then tomorrow that guy is like the head of a studio that will not have games that have microtransactions, right? That will do what the guys from what's called Baldur's Gate did, where they went there, they created a game, they sold it from one single price. You own the game. There's no microtransactions. There's no bullshit. And even then,
awesome.
It got like Game of the Year award, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
they
how I
are
remember
against
The Witcher
like games
as well. 2015, I think it was. So you basically purchase the game, you play the game, that's it. There's no online
Also
stuff.
Red Dead, right?
No, I think so. I don't know, but
there's no like daily logging rewards. There's no like
just here's our thing, right? So I think in a way it comes down to like a balance between what I think is good for me as a company, as a project, and what I think is good for them, my clients, my consumers, my audience. So what I'm saying is that I feel like the balance is quite shifted towards me at this point, like what's good for me, for the company, for the industry, not so much for the people. And that's how we kind of ended up probably in this wave of overconsumption and these patterns that are being dictated, and it's quite hard to get rid of at this point. Like every year, you're just used to it now. Every year there's a new phone, there's a new sequel to this movie, there's a new sequel to this game, every year is like the next thing, right? And you're even used to it now. Whereas in the past, like, I don't know, I'm honestly thinking that we might get to a point where every year is going to be a new PS PS7, the next year PS8, the next, like a console every year, bro. It used to take like what, 10 years or more apart in the past, like PS1, PS2, decades apart, and then games like Grand Theft Auto or something like that. So it's getting to a point where it's like closer and closer to each other, each of these releases. So what did we say earlier about saturation of information? It's too many things, right? You can't consume them all. And that's what drives you so crazy, because you have suddenly so many options and such little time to consume all of them.
But also, like, the options are all the same, like you get options, but you don't really, because
it's an
all
illusion.
love movies are the same. All action
Isn't that
movies
our
are the
job
same.
to make it feel like it's different, right? Like, imagine you're like an advertising artist or a marketing artist or something like that. Your job is to make it like, I know it's the same, but make it look different, right? Like, I'm not saying that's how it is, but it's a comical
That's how it is.
but it's a comical representation of it sometimes, especially with the cash grabbing creations, which are just meant for, we got to make cash. Come on, guys, let's do another one. So anyway, Dom, you have anything else, any other topic?
I think we got derailed a little bit on the inspiration stuff.
Big time,
I think
bro.
that was still
That's
good to
what we
mention.
do, so it's all right. Sorry. Go ahead.
What about like some of the AI stuff? AI will outwork you if you give up in your career. Which, there is a possibility, but with the way things are going, if you do the right things, I think you can fight back. Like, there is still a way.
Oh, definitely. Like, especially with what we were talking about in terms of, what we see out there is more of the same, right? The whole
That's what
AI
will
thing.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, the people that are making decisions based on what AI produces are still like the same old lame people that are picking the same thing over and over again, right? I do think that the way that the industry is going, and for that sense, I mean, like, every single industry that can use AI as well, it's giving more power to the individual to make his own thing. So that whole like giving up part, I think that's exactly the opposite. Like, right now is the time that if you work very, very hard for yourself, I think now you actually get a fighting chance against big companies.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because now for you to produce your own fucking awesome thing is so much faster and so much easier that you can actually produce quality content by yourself, like, alone. And before that, it required like a big company with 60 employees, like all of them working on the very same thing, right? So if you want to express yourself, first of all, you'll be doing something good for like the whole variety thing, because then you are not just reproducing what you see out there, but also like you are fighting against the companies that you assume are just using AI to rehash the same things over and over again.
Yep.
I think we're just trying to stop a wave. Wouldn't it be a little more helpful to try to surf the wave? Like, think of every time something new came to happen, like a new technology had like an evolutionary transition, right? Who could stop digital, for instance, when you went from analog cameras to digital cameras? Oh no, photographers are gonna be out of business. Or like when the light bulbs were invented, for instance, and you went from light. What about candlelight? What about candle makers? Everybody, my point is, like, everyone finds a way. You somehow find a way to adapt to whatever comes. And if you want to fight it, go ahead, fight it. Yeah, like, we can delve into like moral responsibilities and the ethics of it and all that stuff. I'm not discussing any of that. I don't think any of us is supporting like theft and all that shit, right? What we're saying is like we're addressing.
It's important to highlight that, though.
Yeah, we're addressing this big concern about it's like the panic that you feel out there. People are fearing
There's a
for
lot
their
of it.
lives quite literally. I'm going to be out of a job. I won't have anything to work on. No one will hire me because everyone will be using AI. And I think it's, you guys know how we usually think of bad stuff much, much worse than it actually happens. Like we tend to think of catastrophic outcomes. And then it's just a little thing. You know, it's nothing.
Exactly.
So I hope that you understand that's an extreme example, but the whole thing with AI is that if you have to use it to work, you will use it to work. And if you don't, then you won't work. You can do your own thing. That's fine. I'm not saying this is how it's going to be, right? I'm just setting up like different stages in my mind. Imagine we're now here is 2029, you know, and
you do have
this
that
thing
example,
happens.
you know.
Yeah.
Like animation company, if the company works with a particular software, you either know that software and you
No,
work
but
there,
I work in
or
Blender,
you
bro.
don't work there.
Sorry. We use Houdini
Yeah,
and Maya.
sorry, we use Maya. Yeah.
No, but I know Blender. You know, it's like, yeah, but do
Yeah,
you
good
have
for
this?
you. Go find a
Yeah.
company that uses Blender then.
No, but Blender is good. It's good. I know it's good. It just doesn't fit here, you know,
Yeah.
in our system, the way we
pipeline.
created this whole structure. So I'm sorry, but you'll have to do
And
this.
for that matter, there will be companies, and there already are, that will say, hey, we do not use AI here.
Exactly, yeah.
There will be those companies, and they will be profitable as well. They, like, do you think that the final consumer cares? No one gives a shit about what you used.
No one gives a shit about the process. They only care about the final result, which is what I think puzzles many of us when you hear the client say, oh, don't use Cinema 4D. But you just want an illustration, right? What does it matter what I use? Like I can use VR, I can use a photo of my, you know, my sculpture. You know, it doesn't matter. If you only care about the final image and I can deliver it on time, and so be it. I'll do it that way. And I'll find every single tool that works for me that makes my life easier to reach that goal. So I think it's a win-win for everyone, unless and then we talk about the, you know, the unethical practices of how those tools get better and stuff. Then that's not
I think
fine.
it's important to highlight that, like, because I think the optimum way for these companies to do things would be to really license images from people. So, like, if you want your images like feeding this machine, go there, license it, get a kickback from every time that, I don't know, someone does something that uses your image. I have no idea, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that the way that they are designed right now, it would be a huge hit for them to go back and retrain everything that was already done wrong. So the trained AIs that are out there, they are based off of literal stealing images, right? And that's the only point where this can be controversial in my mind, right? Like, what to do with that, like with the whole
because
non-authorized things.
I feel like at this point they're like, all right, that's it. New beginning, you know, reset. Like they profited on that initial stage of confusion. Is like, what is this thing? What does it do? Oh my God, it's learning so fast. How does it do it? And they profited on that initial confusion. And now it's like, all right, done, reset. Yeah, those people died, but it's over. You know, and when I say those people died, I mean the artists that have been robbed. It's a metaphor. They spiritually died. You know, they've been robbed of something in their lives. And I feel like that's how they're treating it now, you know, like, all right, but that's a part of the past. Now it's a new beginning. Let's go. They don't want to be judged.
But, you know,
and now they're facing all that stuff with the trials and I don't know. I feel like in the future it's going to be regularized somehow. You know, it's going to be a control over how you train this specific AI or how you train this other. But who the fuck controls the internet, bro? Like, seriously.
No, yeah.
The moment you upload something, it's Tiana. Remember her? Like in the episode we had with her, she said exactly this. Like, when you put something online, it's never gonna go offline. You know, it's never going off. It's never gonna be deleted. It's always gonna be stored for the rest of the history. So, yeah.
So the thing about making it regularize it, here's the thing, right? The companies that will use those tools that are controversial but are more profitable are the profit-oriented companies. And you might get those tools regularized in the US or in Europe, the European Union or whatever. What do you think those companies will do? They will not care. They will hire from countries that don't regularize it. They will hire from places that don't care about it. Like this whole idea of we'll create laws to prevent that. Here's the thing about people that have money. They can go to where those laws don't exist. That's why taxing the rich
we could
doesn't
be talking
work.
about this for like hours and hours, because isn't that exactly what they do with every other industry as well? Food industry,
Yeah.
and pharmaceutical industry. Like,
Why do you
there's
think everything
always-
is made in China?
There's always workarounds, for
Secret.
these things. Like, oh, they don't let me do it here, then I'll make my headquarters somewhere else, in another place that they do allow me to do that. So there's always a workaround for these things.
That's why I think focusing on what we can do, which is like working on improving ourselves, making ourselves better competition for like whether you want to use these tools or not, right? You need to work on yourself and make yourself more valuable for whoever is working with you.
Because if you show no value, no one's still going to hire you, even if you have that degree that you worked so hard for in art school. I mean, it's your skill set. It's your what you bring to the table. Can you do the job? Can you adapt to the tools? If not,
are you good to work with?
And,
do you make your work environment better? How do you treat other people? Right. That's
you
why
reach
the whole
deadlines?
can you manage your time? Like, can I rely on you that if you say that you get something done, you will get it done? It's that sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it's something that you just reminded me of so many videos and voice recording and stuff that I did in the past that I never get to release, but I might go back, revisit those, and put them out now, because I was recording my opinions on the matter back then, and it usually went like this. Like, if in the near future we lose our jobs, we no longer work as artists because it's no longer needed for us to paint, and all they're asking us to do is to come up with like AI creations. No, you have to use this software, and the same way. Do you know how to use Photoshop? Do you know how to use ZBrush? Do you know how to use? Yeah, no, okay, hired or not hired. So it's that decision making process during the hiring thing. What if you get to that point where they're like, all right, then you're not going to work if you don't use this? And my response is like, okay, then I won't. I'll look for something else. But no one can take away my ability, my passion, and everything I have for this craft. If I truly want to paint, and these are the paintings that I make myself, who's going to stop me from doing that, right? You can get another job either at another company within the same industry without even having changing careers or anything. Or do that, but adaptation will kick in at some point, and you will do whatever it takes to stay afloat and keep rising further. And then you will find yourself in this new chapter of your life, looking back and thinking, damn, I went through that. Crazy. So that's how I feel when I imagine these questions, like, oh, but what if it takes our jobs? And I'm like, if the industry has to change, it's going to change no matter what. It's like this huge wave. How can you stop that? No, but if we lock arms together, we can stop it. And it's going to... I get it. I understand the sentiment, like, oh, but we're artists and we have to... I get it. But think about it. Think long term. Think where this is going. And the way I see it right now, which is a lot of what a lot of people have thought of me as a foolish guy for thinking this, because I was saying like, oh, but it's not autonomous, it can't create stuff on its own. Oh, but you'll see, it's in its infancy right now, and once it gets better, it'll surpass us all. And I'm like, all right, but when we get there, we'll see what happens, right? Until then, we have all this time to keep improving, keep honing our own skills, and everything you mentioned earlier, Andre.
There's also like it's the third time this week that I mentioned this very thing, right? So
Go
these
ahead.
talks are very. It's there is this documentary on I think it's Disney Plus about ILM and how they evolved over time. And there's one episode where they mention when they started introducing the digital tools, and before it was all like props made by hand and then like animated by hand as well, kind of like stop motion style, and people had to do like manual rigs for the maquettes to move and all of those things. And they introduced the like digital tools, which made everything like that much faster, that much more accurate, and that much.
But no, not digital.
So there were
no,
people that did not adapt, right? There were people that thought that was not like the right way to do things or the
of course there's
pure
going to
way
be
to
resistance.
do things.
Yeah.
And guess what? Like those people, they were not relevant anymore, right? I'm not saying that it will be the same thing because I think today's world is a little bit different. I think that today you get the choice. Today you can choose not to use those tools if you want to, but I think that then you need to be realistic about what your options will be, and that you will probably have to work on a smaller company or probably on your own company. Like if you really are against it, you can like create your own studio and start being like a small entrepreneur. Maybe you get like less money, but it's money that you feel good about. I don't know, right? Like the thing is today you can do that, but it's also very much as revolutionary as that was. Or as an example, I was talking like to an art director the other day, and he was saying, "Oh, it's just portrait painters when photo cameras came around, right? Photographic cameras. Like, what was the painting used? Painting portraits was probably the base income of every artist back then, because every like rich guy wanted a portrait. Every family would have like the family's portrait or whatever, the dad and the mom and that sort of thing, right? Or at least people who could afford it. And then came the photography, and it killed that whole thing, right? And that's where you got like other art movements, because now being real, creating realism was not challenging anymore. That wasn't the thing anymore.
I like that you're saying this, like, because it's that pressure that incentivize this innovation and adaptation. It's how the whole thing works in nature too. Evolution worked that way, right?
A lot of art movements came from that, from the necessity that stopped being there. So like, imagine that now on, no one will need you to design like the screw that goes into that spaceship, right?
Those are the things that I think of when you say AI, like automating the boring part of it, unless you love designing little screws, but
parts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the boring steps between
the end of the day,
different stages, right?
Yeah, the people that use it, the people that will control it, will choose where that gun is pointed at.
Exactly.
So,
good point. Yeah. And I love it. I love it because I was just thinking about this very recently, comparing it to art with like the candle example that I said, oh, candle makers, what about them? When they invented the light bulb. Well, if anything, that job becomes even more distinguished and more relevant because it's more rare. It's more unique now,
Dude,
so
we have scented candles now. I buy them at my house.
You painted by hand? You don't use any AI? Yeah, dude, I painted this. It's like, damn, this must be worth a fortune. Because it's that's how it gets that value, right? So I was thinking, what happened to candles now? No one uses them for like their intended function that they were originally designed for, because it's light bulbs substituted that, right? They replaced that. But you still have candles nowadays. What do? They're decoration. They're beautiful. They're nice to look at. They are ambient kind of thing, right? They even emit different smells and
it's very interesting that you say that, because like my wife's very much into candles, right? So she showed me this whole world of candles and all of that. And there's also like this. First of all, if you guys don't buy them, because I assume that you don't. right? I would never have bought them if my wife didn't. So that's why I assume that you don't.
Yeah, we're
But
with you, bro.
if you want to create a particular mood, right, it's really awesome because the smell, it is really a part of how you feel, like comfortable or energized or whatever.
Yeah.
So whenever we want to have like a date night or something, we lit up one of those and you create like this super cozy environment in our house. Like we
It's
put
the
on a
lighting,
movie, we dim the
way
lights.
the flame behaves, the flickering thing, which can be imitated by an artificial kind of light and stuff. But
dude,
there's certain
the whole
things.
point is,
yeah,
there are companies that do this and they thrive doing this, right? And another thing, like a related thing, there's these YouTubers that I watch because they produce content about like Harry Potter and that sort of thing, right? Right now they're doing a really cool series about like reading all the books and kind of like diving deep into each chapter, how JK wrote each chapter and all that stuff. And they have a child company they created that sells candles that are thematic, right? So look, I'm trying to show creative ways to deal with an old, like outdated product, right?
that was the point
what they did
of my
is
example with the candles, right?
Yeah. So they create candles, and because they created the whole brand around being the fan base of Harry Potter or other franchises like, I don't know, Hunger Games or whatever, they create a candle that when you burn it down, you get a little miniature inside of it that is collectible of that thing, and that miniature is released like once a month, so every month is a different one, and it never repeats, so it's like very collectible, and you get the rush of like, oh, I need to get this now because it will not like come out ever again. And
it's still
this is
a
the thing,
candle,
right?
and
It's still a candle, and it still has the small little thing, and it still sells, makes a lot of money, like. And you are technically offering value to the people because they are fans of this franchise. And although, like, I think me and you guys were not big fans of this huge like consumerism, where just accumulating items, right, collecting stuff.
Well, I've been
We're not stupid. We are aware that people collect stuff.
my
right?
setup lately, but I get what you mean. Like, not for the sake of buying, right? Like, I gotta have the next iPhone, or I gotta have the next
It
whatever
has
it
to
is.
have a use. Like you use it every day. You're not just buying it to
I think that's for us, right? But for some people, they like to collect stuff. And I do think it's appropriate to have a product line for that kind of people. Like it's not on me to judge them for liking to collect.
That I see with a different angle, because I think that has a different purpose. Unlike the type of profile that we're mentioning here for the consumer, the average, teenager who just wants the next shiniest toy, right? That is new in the market. So, but yeah, just to quickly wrap it up, like a finishing quote. This whole thing reminded me of a quote that I heard in the 300 movie, which is when they tell him that in a menacing
I see
tone,
the very historically accurate movie.
They say their arrows will cover the sun or something like that, and then they reply, well, then we'll fight in the shade. So it's like not backing down, just adapting, just okay, if that's what it is, so be it. Bring it on. Exactly. So yeah, I would say to this whole AI thing, I don't even know what to say, actually.
Well, like the ones who will fall. The ones that keep going will keep going. That's just how it is, It'll weed out the people who give up. Yeah, that's the thing. So
they would have given up either way. So.
It's like,
I know I said to quickly wrap it up, but it's taking a little longer because I just thought of another example. This morning I was finishing my workout, and when you come from the outskirts and like the roads outside of the city and stuff, because I was riding my bike, that's different than when you enter the city with the streets and there's crowds and people and light stops. So there's this light stop or stoplight. I forgot right now if I said it right. There's this stoplight that was red for me, and I see that, and it's a very uncomfortable stoplight. That if I have to stop there, you lose momentum. It's very unpleasing, especially at the very end because you want to do the sprint and stuff. Anyway, long story short, I see this thing is red. It's in front of me, and then I don't know, man. Something inside of me is like, Adrian, just focus on your path, and the rest will just light up. Guess what? Without knowing the timing or anything, because you may say, oh, but you just knew how long it was going to take to light up, right? I had no idea. I just thought, all right, they say if I just focus on my thing, on the present, right here, like everything else falls in place. And as I'm approaching that thing, I lift up I raise up my head, and I see the thing just turns green. And it was like this revelation kind of thing, like, it works. If you just mind your own business, the universe favors you. Like fortune favors the prepared minds. So if you just mind your own business, try very hard and do your absolute best, it's pretty impossible for you not to get where you actually want to go. So that's all I'm gonna say. It's all there, guys. Signs all around. You have to have the guts to witness and spot them. So, with
guys,
that being said,
don't give up.
Don't give up, guys. Stay strong.
Much,
and we hope to see you in the next episode. But until then,
please do leave the comments. I know.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know in the comments what you think about any of the things we mentioned in this episode. And just hit us up if you need anything. Also, make sure you check our LightShare community on Discord. We have a link in the description and possibly in the pinned comment below. But this being said, we just hope to see you in the next one, and we hope you enjoyed it. This has been the LightShare team once again. So, thank you. See you next time.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.